is recorded, so you can go online later, or if you want to share it with somebody, you're more than welcome to. It's on our website. And how we handle the meetings are, we've got 2 items on the agenda tonight. Sarah can go into further detail on those. I'm the planning director for the city, and Sarah is our planner that has been working with the folks that are making the requests. So she has more detail on it than I do. So I'll let her do the presentations. But each item will have a brief presentation of what's being considered. We allow the developer or builder to make a short presentation, and then we'll ask everybody, whoever wants to ask questions is more than free to do so. And it's just a conversation back and forth between you and the developer or builder, so that you can get some good feedback prior to this going to public hearing. So the goodwill item is a special use permit, which is kind of like a zoning for a property, but it will have 2 public hearings, one before the Planning and Zoning Commission and one before council. So there will be other opportunities to provide information and feedback as we go through the process. The other item on the agenda is a kind of a mixed use project on Wanda, right behind HEB. And that one is, the developer is just looking at this site for potential development. We haven't talked in a great bit of detail on that project, but they really just want to get your feedback on that. So that's not scheduled for an agenda item yet. It's really just for your feedback. We have Councilman Scott on the meeting as well. So he'll be listening in and may ask a couple of questions as well. So thank you, Councilman Scott, for attending. But he'll hear all of your comments. And like I said, P&Z members can go back and look at these videos. Council members can go back and look. So this is your time for some free speech and to get some good, solid information from the horse's mouth, so to speak. So Sarah, you want to go ahead with the presentation?
Sure. Let me share my screen and just give you guys the location. So we're going to start with the special use permit request for the Goodwill. The site is at 232 West Bend area. The
So I
applicant is
cannot
online.
see your screen yet.
Just a sec. Okay. Nope.
There you go. Thank you.
And if you don't,
Yes, ma'am.
so it's the property on the corner of West Bend area and Wanda. Currently, they already have commercial development over there. It's currently subdivided in 6 different suites, and the request will be to occupy 5 of those suites with the Goodwill location. Based on the information the applicant gave me, it would be part of the footprint of the site would be used for a storefront properly. They call it as one of the Goodwill's boutique stores. And the other part of the building would be used for storage and kind of organizing the donations and things of the kind. The applicant is online, and they told me that they do have a presentation that they would like to give. So if you guys want to start sharing your screen and take from here.
Great. If you'll introduce yourselves first, and then Sarah will let you share your screen. I don't hear anybody yet.
Ms. Bunch, I think you're still on mute.
Okay.
There you go.
Thank you for allowing us to introduce Goodwill to Boerne. My name is Janice Bunch. I'm the president and chief operating officer of Goodwill San Antonio. And I've been a Boerne resident for 20 years. And I love this community and plan to retire here. My vice president of donated goods and retail operations can't be on the call tonight, but he would be responsible for this operation. He moved to San Antonio in 2018.
I'm here, Janet. I'm here.
Oh, okay.
I'm aiding.
All right, good. He moved to San Antonio in 2018 after 16 years with the North Carolina and Georgia Goodwills, and he settled in Fair Oaks, and he has a son in Boerne High School. So we're both very committed to this community. And I'm ready to share my screen whenever you're ready, Sarah.
Janice, I'm sorry, who was the other gentleman's name?
George Staska, S-T-A-S-K-A.
Thank you.
So I believe you can, if you go on the bottom, the green button will share your screen and you can select which screen you want to share.
We got it.
Yes,
Okay, everybody can see the screen?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. We really appreciate you allowing us to bring our preliminary plans to Goodwill, to Boerne, and we're happy to take what I'd like to do is just give you some preliminaries of what we're looking at doing, and then tell you a little bit more about Goodwill, and then take any questions that you might have.
Great.
So this is the property. As Sarah said, it's right there at Bandera and Wanda. And the 5 suites are all but the Smoothie King that are there in the property right now. And we would be renovating all 5 of those suites to operate an attended donation center and a specialty store. And we would provide employment for about 6 to 8 full and or part-time employees. We're in the very preliminary stages of working with the landlord on leasing the space. So we don't yet have a final concept, but this depiction is similar to what we expect to ultimately look like from Bandera Road. We operate 7 days a week. We'd be handling donations from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. on the west end of the property. And our trucks would be arriving early morning, probably just prior to that 8 a.m. And the specialty store will operate from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. And as I mentioned, we haven't quite settled on the concept yet. So we're still working on that. So who's Goodwill and why Boerne? Goodwill is a completely self-supporting 501c3 nonprofit. It's operating in a federated organization structure, and each Goodwill has a unique territory, its own board of directors, and is a member of the Federation of Goodwill Industries International. Goodwill San Antonio's territory is comprised of these 24 counties in Texas, and we currently have a presence in only 5 of these counties, these 5 shaded counties. We have very strong growth plans, and we've been particularly looking to expand into Kendall County and the Boerne area for quite some time. This location presents a great opportunity for us to do that. Goodwill's mission is to help change lives through the power of work. We help people with jobs. We're all about jobs. Our mission is to help people obtain employment, stay employed, and advance through employment, both within our Goodwill organization, as well as with other employers in the communities that we serve. So Goodwill San Antonio is comprised of 3 unique operating units, all with that same mission to help change lives through the power of work. So our workforce development programs are managed through a unique unit that provides training and employment services to the community. We have a career academy that provides certificate programs. We provide commercial driver's license training, medical assistant, nurse aid, pharmacy tech, and some other programs through our academy. We also have good career centers that provide job search and placement assistance from several of our San Antonio stores. They're actually in the stores. And then there are several other programs that this unit provides in terms of skills development and job placement for those with challenges and barriers to employment, notably those who haven't finished high school and those who've been incarcerated. Our second unit is business services, Goodwill Business Services. They provide outsourcing services to government and public and private organizations. Today it employs over 600 people, providing services like document management, administrative services, call center services, grounds maintenance, and tree care services. It primarily provides employment for people with qualifying disabilities under the federal Ability-1 program. And Goodwill actually has employees working under federal contracts on every military installation in San Antonio. So now most people know Goodwill for our donation sites in our stores, which is our third unique operating unit. DGR, Donated Goods and Retail, is the unit under which our Boerne operation would be managed. So we today have over 800 employees just in DGR, operating 22 stores in that 24 county territory, 2 outlets, and 7 separate attended donation centers. We also sell donations online through our e-commerce unit and to the secondary market in bulk. Some of the pictures that you see here are in the upper left is our operations center in San Antonio at I-35 and Walsham, where we employ almost 200. And in the center of the page is our prototype store. If you've been in San Antonio, this is on Blanco, just north of 1604, 25,000 square feet. This is the look and feel that we are building today. We are also building a similar store at Bandera in 1604 on the west side, also at I-35 North in 1604. And we are also in the process of leasing and opening a store on Highway 46 at the 281 North in Boerne, Spring Branch area. So Goodwill proudly considers itself a major force in the circular economy and a friend to the environment by keeping items circulating in the economy and out of landfills. Our generous donors give us donations. We produce those donations, put them into our retail store operations and or list them online, primarily at shopgoodwill.com, and generate revenue. If an item does not sell within 30 days, we generally take it to our outlets where we sell in bulk, or to secondary markets where we sell in bulk. This gives every donation an opportunity to be purchased and recirculated in the economy. So this is how our model works. Our generous donors provide us with donations that make us self-supporting. We don't fundraise. We don't get generate revenue any other way except by selling donations. So that revenue allows us to first support our employees, who are our first mission. In Donated Goods Retail today, we have over 800 employees. We're providing them with a livable wage, benefits that are affordable to our lowest wage workers. Our lowest wage is $13.50. We also provide them with life skills coaches, with chaplains, financial and digital literacy, recognition and incentive pay programs, as well as retirement plans. So our employees are our first mission. We take care of them first. Secondarily, that revenue helps us fund those workforce development programs that I mentioned. And third, that revenue allows us to grow. It allows us to fund our support services and build new stores, provide more jobs, and provide more services, thereby allowing us to help change lives through the power of work. So that's basically, in a nutshell, very quickly, who and what Goodwill is, what we're hoping to do in Boerne, and we look forward to becoming part of the team, the Boerne community. And we thank you in advance for supporting our mission and welcome any questions you might have.
Thank you, Janice. Appreciate that. So I will ask a question because it's come up a couple of times, and then we'll get the ball rolling and let everybody chime in. How do you handle the donations? How much square footage of what you're leasing is going to be intake? And then the retail side of it. And then how do you handle the donations? Because there's no outside storage bins. We've talked about that. How do you handle the intake?
Basically, this will be a drive up and drop off operation, and about, like I said, we have not finalized our footprint yet, but about 4,000 square feet is going to be dedicated to the donation operation. We sort donations inside the operation, prepare them to be loaded on trucks, and make them available to the store as needed, but primarily we will load up donations and sort donations in the back of that 4,000 square feet. We expect the store to be about somewhere between 1,600 and 2,000 square feet. It is, like I mentioned, going to be a type of specialty store. We have one of those in San Antonio, where we actually do call it a boutique. It is more like a Charming Charlie's with jewelry and accessories and some new with tag clothing, designer clothing and shoes. I don't anticipate that's exactly what we would do in Boerne, but we have, 4 or 5 different really unique ideas that we're still thinking about, but that's basically the thought process right now.
Great, thank you. So does anybody have any questions for Janice?
I do.
Stacy, go ahead.
Well, first of all, welcome to this conversation. I have a child who went through your Good Careers Academy before she passed away, and it was a wonderful experience, and I do appreciate all that you do at Goodwill and the different programs. I do have a question about your anticipated annual revenue. How much do you plan on generating in the store, and how much, and then so my second question would be, how much will stay in Kendall County?
The revenue for the store is uncertain, as we don't really have the concept developed yet. We expect at least the revenue to cover the expense of the entire donation center operation. All of the employees will, I hope, come from the Boerne community. So that is our contribution generally to the community, as well as sales tax, obviously. We don't know until we develop the concept how many of the donations would actually be sold in the specialty store. So I'm not sure that I can answer your question completely at this point until we get our concept developed.
I then have another question about how are you going to find individuals to hire? And because you're a Boerne resident and you're Chief Operating Officer, at least I hope that's the title of George, we have a very strong problem about finding adequate employees. And I represent a nonprofit organization that deals with individuals and families in crisis. And so we also have a retail thrift store. And so it's a very significant problem. And so, if you can't find the workers to do the work, then you don't have anyone to impact. And so have you done studies to identify, have you worked with our local chamber, Economic Development Corporation? Like, what has been your process to determine where your workforce is going to come from? Because nobody can live on $13 an hour in Boerne. It just is possible.
Mm-hmm. That's a very good question. And it has always been the most significant concern for us coming into smaller communities. I guess I can give you probably our best example at this point is Kerrville. We have a store in Kerrville. It's not a large store. I would say it's a small to medium-sized store. And we've had the same concern with keeping that store staffed. We have a tremendous team of talent acquisition professionals that work constantly. This is not a problem unique to Boerne, although, it's obviously a smaller workforce, smaller pool. It's the same situation in San Antonio, where we have on a regular basis concerns and issues with staffing, as all employers have had over the last couple of years. But our team of talent acquisition specialists comes into the community and identifies partnerships, whether it is other staffing companies in the community, or church organizations, or, as you mentioned, the chamber. We have regular job fair events in which we communicate what our mission is and what we provide to our employees. One of the things that helps us, Goodwill Recruiting, is the fact that we do intentionally hire people with barriers and challenges that other employers might not hire. And so I mentioned we focus some of our workforce development programs on individuals with the without a high school diploma, or coming out of incarceration, or coming out of an abusive environment, or any number of challenges. And we bring them into our environment, and we match them up with a life skills coach. We provide them with digital and financial literacy training, some leadership development training as they advance. We help them understand their health insurance. For a lot of our employees have never had health insurance in their lives. So those are the kinds of things that help Goodwill attract and retain employees. And you're right, $13.50 an hour is not a quote unquote living wage in Boerne, but for an individual who might have those barriers and challenges, it gets them on the front rung of the ladder. And we work really hard developing our staff. We might bring them into San Antonio to learn some of the other operation, and allow them an opportunity to advance through the Goodwill organization. We have over 1,600 employees, Goodwill San Antonio does. And those other units that I mentioned, workforce development, business services, also have a lot of opportunities. So our employees have the opportunity to move around within the organization and advance and increase their pay that way. But our hourly wage, coupled with the affordable health plan, we also provide an annual incentive, which is equivalent to an additional paycheck every December right before Christmas. So our total compensation package is very helpful to us in whatever community we come into to help recruit.
I don't mean to hog the time, but because this is my space that you would be coming into, it is competitive. And so therefore, what I want to know is if you've done all of the studies to make sure that you understand the number of people that would be eligible for your services, number one, number of people who may come to you in this need of a life coach and a financial literacy. Everybody needs health insurance, but I really would love to see the studies that you've done to determine how you don't duplicate services in the community, because everything that you've mentioned so far is actually available in Kendall County by Kendall County organizations taking care of Kendall County families. And so, you know, we as a nonprofit community so heavily believe in never duplicating anybody else's services. And so our concern, and I know this is your opportunity to shine, so I'll save this for public comments, but our collective concern is that you're a duplication of services. And I just need to see how you wouldn't be duplicating work that's already being done in a very intentional and collaborative way.
So when you mention duplication of services, are you speaking about the workforce development services, or are you speaking about the thrift store space? Because what we are coming into Boerne to do basically is to provide a place for the community to donate and have those donations move through our process to benefit not only our employees, but the broader San Antonio community as well, our entire 24 county space, as well as provide the thrift store experience in a specialty shop there in Boerne. It is not our goal, at least initially, to bring employment services or a career center or an academy to Boerne. It is simply a place to donate and shop.
So I have a nonprofit organization that 25% of our annual revenue comes from a high-end thrift shop. And so that's the lens in which I'm asking you. There are multiple people on the call today. We're all blessed to have an opportunity to listen to your information. But what we all represent organizations that you live here and give here. And the money that is generated stays in Kendall County and helps Kendall County families.
Yeah, I certainly understand that. And I'm, as a longtime Boerne resident, aware of not all, but that there are a large number of nonprofits providing services, very important relief services in the Boerne area.
Thank
Hi,
you so much.
I'm Mary Sue with Hill Country Daily Bread, and that is something that we do for our clients, that we are 100% free, that we donate items. We make sure that each one of the items that we do have, whether it's food or clothing, or items that we actually make sure it gets into the homes of those in this Texas Hill Country area. And of course, that's 100% free. But we do have other nonprofits that do also, as Stacy was saying, that do count on those donated items to do their thrift shops and other places. So if y'all weren't to come to Boerne, where else might y'all be located?
If we were not coming to Boerne?
Because this is a preliminary?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it is. We're still working through lease negotiations with the landlord. We've been, like I said, looking at the Boerne space for a number of years. And we believe there is a sufficient market, primarily due to the significant growth in Boerne, for donations collection. And we are looking at lots of different communities all the time. So we're in particular, we have a store in New Braunfels. We are looking at opportunities to add a second store in New Braunfels. We have a store in Cibolo that we would like to expand. We, as I mentioned, are leasing a facility to open a store in the Bulverde Spring Branch area, 281 North and Highway 46. So we are constantly scanning our territory for opportunities, and what we look for first in terms of the marketplace is donors. That's what drives Goodwill is donors. If we are completely self-sufficient based on the generosity of our donors.
As we are well. So I don't know, other nonprofits can jump in as well, but we can guarantee that we are getting the items that we serve to actual people in our area. As far as what you would be giving, does it all go back to San Antonio, that area?
Not necessarily. as I mentioned, we have territory from Kerrville to Laredo and out to Uvalde, and Del Rio and Eagle Pass. So it could go anywhere in our territory. You know, it's extraordinary the number of relief agencies and nonprofits in the Boerne area. And a lot of times people mistakenly put Goodwill in that category. We're not a relief agency. Our model is totally different. Our model is to generate the revenue to support our other programs that start with our employees. And so when you think about the relief agency model that collects the donations in the community and provides them for free to community members, that is not our model at all.
So can I, this before this Zoom thing, so I don't know if I'm doing it right. Can y'all hear me?
Would you just state your name? Yes, we can hear you.
This is Shelby Johnson. I have Faith and Funky Junk Thrift Barn. And curious, it seems like, so what I'm hearing is that y'all will employ 8 people, but you will take all the items that we rely on from our town that we give back to Boerne. You're going to take all of our, so much of our items that we help with, I mean, but, and to go out of Boerne. So really it's only employing 8 people and, you know, and I guess I just don't see where that would just benefit us at all.
You know, our model is different, like I said, and it is intended to keep items out of landfills and use those generously donated items to support employment programs, starting with our employees. So yes, the smaller communities have smaller employee counts, but those employees are just as important to us as any of the employees in the larger communities we serve.
So in my store alone, we have 6 employees, and then we have, oh gosh, I've been 25 or 30 volunteers that come in and just love helping and enjoy it. And so that's been something that that I can't see how it seems so personal, taking money.
Shelby, you're cutting out pretty bad.
Okay.
If you'll just move around a little bit, we'll tell you if we can hear you any better, but it's like every other word.
Okay.
Hold on, Dawn, I see your hand.
Okay.
Hold on, let me see if Shelby, are you, that didn't sound like you were done. You want to try again?
Wrong with my phone. I'm just off the phone, so that's probably fine.
Gotcha. Do you mind if I move on to somebody else and then we try you again?
Go ahead.
Or Dawn, what were you gonna?
Okay, I am the executive director of the Hill Country Animal League. We are a spay neuter clinic. We have a very large thrift store about a block from where you intend to put your new store. We hire 15 employees. We are quite good at keeping things out of landfills, and our money stays within the county. I personally think that your coming into the community will take away from all of the other 501c3s that support Kendall County. I think that Shelby agrees with me. You're going to take away our employees, you're going to take away our donations, and your money is going to go to San Antonio and other places into Goodwill and not stay within Kendall County. So I personally don't see the benefit of you coming in and disrupting what's going on here. And even though there is rapid growth, we are planning on growing with that as well. And so I don't know, I am opposed because what you are bringing in is not staying within our county and supporting our local group. We have insurance, we do the similar things to you, and we have 15 employees. So I don't know where you're going to get your employee base from. We have enough trouble getting employees as well. So I don't know. I suppose that I should be more welcoming and say the more the merrier, but I just don't see it.
Don, I totally understand. I'm familiar with all of the 501c3s that you that have spoken so far on the call. I totally understand exactly where you're coming from, and I can't blame you for feeling that way. I honestly can't. We happen to believe that there are sufficient donations in the Boerne community for all of us. But I guess, for all of us, that would remain to be seen if we were to open. But we firmly believe that. We certainly don't have any intention of coming in and taking employees or taking donations that would go elsewhere. But our model is just different. It's just different.
Understand. Thank you
Thank
for
you, Dawn. Does anybody else have any questions?
Actually, I have more comments.
Brian, I have a couple of questions.
Let's let Brian speak, and then Stacy, I'll call on you.
Yes, of course.
I have just a couple of questions about traffic and lighting security. I guess I live I guess at the northern end of Wanda Street at the corner of Bess. And so we have quite a bit of traffic through there right now. So I'm curious, they had mentioned trucks coming in the early morning. What size would these trucks be and how would they be entering a property? Do they come off of Bandera Road and back up and behind the building? Is that what you envision?
That's what we expect. And typically it would be a box truck, and it would come off Bandera and back in and load and unload and leave off Wanda onto Bandera. Quick access to I-10. Yes.
Thank you. And also, when people come in to make donations, will they be coming to the front of the building on the Bandera?
Yes, we have a couple of different options we're considering. Initially, the donor door would be a walk up at the front. We are also anticipating potentially cutting a door in the side on the Wanda side of the building so that for easier access for donors to drive up and allow us to assist them with their donations.
Thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, hi, this is Dana Cartwright, Brian's wife, also a neighbor right behind you.
Can you get a little bit closer, Dana?
Oh, sorry.
There you go. Thank you. That's great.
I just scooted Brian out of the way so I can get my.
That'll work.
No, we have the same questions, but my only other one I was going to ask is about lighting. Would you be using like low lighting, or would it be lit up 24/7? And if so, would you be using, downward lighting or that type of thing? I guess we're just, because we're almost directly behind you. I mean, on Wanda, the light is sort of our issue, as well as just keeping the traffic down on Wanda Street. And also, I was just going to say, our questions were more from a neighbor standpoint and less about, not about Goodwill coming, but just making the assumption that you were already there. Traffic control and lighting control.
Sure, good question. No, we would be as unobtrusive as we possibly could with lighting. We have no need. We don't feel to have anything extraordinary in terms of lighting. We would just want to respect the neighborhood and keep the lighting as low as possible.
And I can answer a little bit to that. We now fall under dark sky lighting regulations. So the light has to stay on their property, and it all has to be downward. If there's anything exterior, it's got to be pointed to the ground and not out.
Yeah.
Thanks, Laura.
Good, thank you.
You bet. Stacy, I think you wanted to make a comment.
Yes, and I apologize. I didn't know how much of this information was going to be discussed tonight, but I just wanted to be very clear about the fact that data matters a lot to me. I know it matters tremendously to our nonprofit community. So I'll just tell you that we employ 9 individuals in our Random Hangers thrift store and warehouse. Those 9 individuals generate $329,000 in revenue. So that's why I was asking you what your anticipated revenue was going to be. That $329,000 a year provides crisis assistance to 798 people when you do the math. It costs us roughly $412 a person to help through an individual or family crisis. So when monies aren't coming through at the level that we anticipate and predict and plan for as good business stewards and business individuals in our community, that lessens our impact locally. So I'm sure you can appreciate the fact that 25% of our overall revenue is dependent on our thrift shop. And it's because we work in partnership with all the other nonprofit thrift stores. I am really passionate about, I want to know what your studies look like. I want to know who you're going to employ. I want to know what your market studies are, because respectfully, what I hear you saying is that you seek places with lots of donors. Well, that's what we depend on as well. And we have very loyal individuals who support our organizations, knowing full well that their investment, when you give here, you live here and you give here. And that's the model that we use, is that when people give in, donations to us, we keep things out of landfills as well. I appreciate that that's a selling point for you, but I think you'd be hard pressed to find any nonprofit who says anything differently. We do everything in our power to make sure nothing ends up at our community dump. But again, I think before you can move any more forward with your conversation, you have got to have some market studies. You need to know what your competition looks like and make some friends and make sure that we can all work together, because otherwise it's not going to be a healthy environment.
Great, thank you, Stacy.
Of course.
Shelby, you were trying to speak earlier. Are you in a better spot now? Maybe not. Let's see. I see somebody's finger up.
Yeah.
But it just says iPhone on. Yes, you. Can you give me your name, please?
Okay, I'm trying to get out. I don't know how to get out.
No, you're actually good. Just like you are. We
Can
can
you
hear
hear
you. We can see.
hear us?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I was just I was just saying that basically the part of our store, we give away, clothing and furniture to people in need. We give away, we clothe people. We use everything that we use everything. We have a craft area. I mean, we don't throw hardly anything away unless it's just trash. And I love how we all are helping different different genres. We're helping one of our thrift stores is family services, and we're basically anybody, individuals. We've got the animals, we've got it all covered. And it's just like, to think that I'm just kind of reiterating what Stacy said. It just makes me kind of, yeah, we just keep everything right here. And it makes me sick to think that, it would all be going, so much of it would be going out, and so much of what we rely on.
So I do just want to clarify that you are Shelby, right?
Yes, I'm Shelby.
Okay. It just says
Can you not
iPhone at
see
the
me?
bottom. So I just want to make sure that that's who I was.
Okay. Yes.
No, that's fine. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Does anybody else have any comments or questions that they'd like to share? You can either wave your hand, or there's an icon that you can, it kind of raises your hand, or if you just want to speak up, I can usually tell who's talking. Anybody else?
This is Councilman Scott. I had one quick question.
Yes, sir.
On the donation aspect of it, I think there's a lot of our local collections have troubles with dumping, after hours collections. security for, just dumpster diving, at odd hours of the night, so on and so forth. What plans do you guys have in place not to be a nuisance to neighbors? There's actually one of our next items here is a residential aspect, just 1 or 2 lots behind this property. If there's local residents, what's the plan to keep donations in check during an hour after hours, and maybe securing the garbage cans, fencing, that kind of stuff?
Good question. I'm sure every organization who takes donations experiences this. We do in every single one of our locations. We have a risk management department that focuses entirely on camera management and donation dropping after hours. We have placed fencing around several of our properties, which has deterred completely some of that activity. It depends on the facility, obviously, what we would be able to do. But this is a very strong focus of ours, which is also why we would have our trucks coming early in the morning to ensure that if there was any dumping after hours, it would be cleaned up well before the 8 a.m. Opening of our donation center. It is an ongoing challenge for any organization who takes donations. It doesn't matter whether you post signage, it doesn't matter. Sometimes even if you put up fencing, the dumping will happen outside the fencing. But we have a pretty robust process of camera monitoring, motion detectors, and fencing, and monitoring our locations after hours, and coming in as early as possible in the morning to clean up anything that might have been dropped overnight while we were closed.
Okay, thank you for that. Or was there any plans right now that you're aware of for fencing? There's no fencing on the back side of this, like the privacy fencing on the back side lot lines. Are there any plans to make modifications to add fencing, privacy, to add some cover areas in the back?
We haven't really moved far enough down the line yet to identify that. It would have to be, since we're leasing, obviously we would have to work with the landlord and the landlord's approval for anything like that. But we have done that in several of our locations. Wherever there is a need and it actually helps and keeps even the appearance down. We have, larger dumpsters sometimes deployed in some of those locations. So we haven't, as I mentioned, we haven't gone that far with the landlord yet, but we are certainly open to looking at every option to minimize any opportunity for people to drop donations while we're not closed, and minimize the look to the residents behind the location.
Right, so I think they could perhaps maybe do some visual screening, but you have to remember they've got the Smoothie King on the end that's a drive-through. So they'll have a limited area that they can fence off, other than maybe just some screening on that back property line. But we'll have to look at that as well.
Okay, well, thank you for taking this opportunity to listen to the community and hear folks voice their concerns. Thank you for taking this time.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else, any questions before we move on to our next item? Great, thank you so much. Appreciate it. If y'all want to sign out, you're welcome to, and then we'll follow up with you after the meeting. So Sarah, what's our next item?
So the next item is it's 270
Say,
It is not currently addressed by the Kendall County Appraisal District, but based on the plat, it has this 127 Wanda. Let me share my screen so you guys can have a location. This is not P&Z application yet. It's the applicant has requested. Can you see my screen?
yes, ma'am.
So the applicant has requested to be part of this bond meeting to kind of have an idea how the community is going to receive the request. So the property is a few lots north of the 232 West Bandera is the 01 property between Brian's property and the commercial. The request would be for, sorry, technology sometimes just doesn't work with me.
Either a mixed use type of zoning or an office. So currently the whole property is zoned O1, which is an office type zoning.
Yes, so the request would be this, can you see the new
Yes.
drawing?
Uh-huh.
So what I understand, and the applicant's online and he's probably gonna do a better job than I am on this. I'll call you up in just a bit, Fred. So here would be Wanda, and the idea is to have a split zoning office district on the front of the property, and in the back, he would have residential development. Considering that is more than one single family on the lot, would be considered a multifamily development. What this initial plan presents is 10 bungalows on the site. And Fred, if you want to take it from here, I bet you have better exhibits than this one, and you can share them.
Okay. Yeah.
Fred,
So
do you want me to? I'm sorry, Fred.
yeah,
Go ahead.
I'll let you.
You just introduce yourself first. And
Yeah,
then
I'm Fred
whoever
Hesser.
wants to talk.
I lived, and this is my dog Max. So sorry about that. He's a puppy. So,
That's all right.
but I lived in Boerne for many years, almost 20 years, I think, and I had to move to Austin, and so Mark Haney from Sperry has been helping me with this. What we're interested in doing is finding something that's a really good fit for the growth, and then of course all the neighbors in the area in terms of what is done with that property. And you know, we're real patient about this. I've been overseas most of the time. The last 4 years, I'm back in the U.S. fortunately now. So we just want to talk to you and propose the ideas that we have and get some feedback and see what people are interested in, because we understand that Boerne is growing. And so with whatever we do with this property, we've been approached by people that want to do different things, but we want to make sure that it really fits in with a community plan in the future. So I'll let Mark walk through this. He's done a great job in putting it together.
Sure, I appreciate that, and I want to thank everybody, thank the city, and then thank the neighbors for allowing us to present this. And I think the whole intent is to make sure that we understand the city's concerns and we understand the neighbors' concerns, and it's right to address any of those concerns. So keep in mind that this is it's a conceptual plan. It's we don't have the full set of drawings. We are not that far down the road, but it's basically to show our concept about having the front part of the property being a office type building, a 3,500 square foot building, and then the back part of the property would be a bungalow court. So, and I don't know if I can share my screen, Sarah, if you can, or I don't know if you have those images that I sent to you. I'm not sure what would be better.
I think it's easy if you do it. So on the bottom of your screen, there's a share. You can go from that one.
Okay, sure. Let's see which one here.
Ours is a big green, but there you go. We got
Okay,
it.
can you see that?
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Yeah.
So that's kind of just the concept. To the left would be Wanda Street. The access drive would be the south part of the property, or the property side that would be more towards the commercial development. HEB would be to the left, and then the residential area would be to the north of that. So that's just kind of a general idea. So the office building would be 3,500 square feet. And then for each of the bungalow court buildings, each one of those is 1,000 square feet. Okay. Let's see what else I have here. And that's just kind of an idea. It would be everything. We would try to make it look more of a residential type development. We wouldn't have a, 3-story, 4-story office building. It would all look kind of like this or very similar to this. And obviously these are not the fully developed plans. So it would be nice, basically. And then the other, and this is, are you seeing the PDF that has the Wanda Street 1.2 acre lot?
I do not.
No,
see the,
You'll have
No?
to change
Okay.
the image probably.
Yep, let me try to change that. Let's see. Okay, how about that?
yes, sir.
Okay, so hopefully that makes a little bit more sense as far as what I talked about. And then let's see, I think Sarah has already shown are you seeing the zoning, the split zoning plan?
Yes.
Okay, so basically the western side of that property would be 0.44 acres, which would have the office. And then the part to the right would be an R4B zoning. And that would be 0.77 acres for that part of it. And then let's see, and I know that there was some mention, I know that this has been through some zoning attempts in the past, and I know that there were some mentions about potentially cottage type developments would be more appropriate. And that's kind of why we looked at this as far as the bungalow courts, which are similar to the cottage house developments. The biggest difference being the ownership type. The bungalow courts, you would have one owner that would own all 10 of the bungalow court buildings plus the office building, to where the cottage homes would basically have individual ownership of each building. So that's kind of the difference between the bungalow courts and the cottage homes. And then the biggest thing is, I know that there were questions about traffic, which this is kind of going into the weeds a little bit, but it just kind of gives you a good idea of the peak hour trips, which the peak hour trips, I don't know how many people have heard about this. Laura and Sarah, you probably heard about this, what it's all about. But basically what you have is you have a time frame in the morning between 7 o'clock and 9 o'clock where you have a certain number of peak trips, vehicles going in and out. So what you basically have for the office, you would have more trips in and out in the morning, and it's basically calculated at 5.42 trips in and out. It's 4.77 in, 0.65 out. And then for the single family residents, the peak hour trips would be in the afternoon between 4 o'clock and 6 o'clock, which you would have roughly 10.1 total trips, 6.36 in, and a 3.74 out. So for those peak hours, in the morning hours, you would basically have 13.42 trips both in and out. And then for the PM peak hours between 4 and 6 o'clock, you would have 13.1 trips. So just I did this to kind of give you an idea of how much traffic you would have going into the property and out of the property, if that makes sense. Okay. So let's see what else. The other thing that we are trying to do is with and I'll see if I could get this back up. Let's see. So with that, hopefully what we're trying to do with the courtyards that are between the buildings, we're basically trying to keep as many trees as we can. And that's kind of the idea behind this. All of the access to each individual unit would be for the interior courtyard. It wouldn't be for the outside, so it would be for the parking lot area. People would basically have to walk into that center courtyard area. Okay. So that's the other part of the design that we're trying to figure out. And let's see. And as far as screening for fences, obviously we would have to work within the city guidelines, but the idea would be to have not so much fences and masonry fence that would create a kind of a compound, effect. It would be more of maybe a wrought iron type fence with some vegetation, trees, that sort of thing. So it's kind of a softened effect versus, some cities will require you to put a masonry fence from the one area to the other residential area. So that's kind of our thoughts on that. So, and I'm not sure what else I really got for that, but certainly we're going to put it out there to get feedback from the neighbors in the city on this. So.
Great, thank you so much.
Mhm.
So we have looked at this just a little bit internally, and I would anticipate, we'd probably end up seeing more parking spaces than we have sufficient parking and
Sure.
turnaround for fire, that kind of stuff.
Yes.
So we haven't gotten really into the details of it, but they want to understand how people feel about the concept in general. For those folks in the neighborhood, is there anybody that would like to ask a question or make a comment?
Yeah, this is Brian Cartwright again. I do have a couple of questions.
Sure, Brian.
And so I guess my wife and I own the property just to the north of this one being proposed to be developed. And so one of the questions I wanted to clarify that these cottages would not be sold, but they would be leased out.
Yes, absolutely.
Would
Yeah,
that be like a long-term lease or a short-term lease?
It would be long-term leases. I don't think it'd be a short-term rental. So, and that's the reason we chose the bungalow courts, because the bungalow courts actually have to keep that one ownership set up, where the cottage homes are individual ownership.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. What would do you have an anticipated like lease rate on what these would lease for?
Well, I would say that they're probably going to have to be a little higher lease rate. I would not say it's going to be affordable housing, simply because if it's a smaller property, these are 1,000 square feet apiece. So yeah, the rate would be certainly higher than most of your normal lease rates in the area. And they're going to be nice. They're going to be very, very nice. Yeah. So
Are these like 2-bedroom, 1 bath? Do you anticipate or?
Yeah, I mean, you could potentially do 2-bedroom. You couldn't do any more than 2-bedroom, and it may be a mix of 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom. But generally, it's I would say a lot smaller household unit is what we're envisioning for these. It would be a guy like me that doesn't want to work on his yard, and what I'm saying, just I want my little place to stay in, and I want to go do my hobbies and not worry about the yard work. So
Well, it's close to the grocery store. It's close to a lot of things. So
it
there's
is
a lot of
walkable. Yes.
So the office part of the development, it would be remain an 01. Is that correct?
I think that's 02.
So I believe it's an 01 there. Is that correct?
01? And that's limited to 3,500 square feet.
What is it?
I think it's 3,500 square feet.
I was asking Sarah what the zoning is.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
It is 01. Let me check on the square footage.
So it doesn't sound like he'll need a rezoning for just the office complex. I think there's a limit of square footage for an 01. That's what she's looking for. Anything else, Brian, while she's looking that up?
Yeah, it looked like it was a 1-story building. Is that correct?
All 1 story, correct.
all of it. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So, okay, the bungalows as well as the building would all be 1-story.
Mhm.
And then I guess being an 01, I guess it would still, there are certain uses, I guess, that would have to, whoever leases it would have to fall under one of those permitted uses I suppose.
Correct.
Okay.
And the 01 is the most restrictive of the office zonings.
So 01, the maximum building footprint will be 3,500 square feet. And then you do have some maximum height of 30 feet. So there is some other setbacks that are still gonna give you a little bit of space towards your property, right?
Okay, what
You know-
was, can you tell me what the setback footage would be along that northern property line for the office? And
I can, and I've done this, I've laid it out in CAD, and I want to say it is, well, if I could pull up my CAD file here.
So the rear and the side setback at property line adjoining residential would be 20 feet. So
Yep.
that would be,
so I
So
guess
the setback requirement for adjoining residential, for commercial adjoining residential is 20 feet.
so it'd be
Yeah.
20 feet of space, I guess, between this development
Yeah,
and
between
and
us.
our property.
This
Is
is,
that correct?
this is Dana. I'm sitting here with.
Right.
Brian. Okay, so yeah, we're just gonna, and my question to go along with what Brian said, would just be, I think I heard someone say a minute ago that they were not anticipating building a fence, but wanted natural screening. Would that be also between us and them? And again, for those that don't know on the call, where we would be the property and in front of, or our back, the back of our property would back up to where the bungalows would adjoin to. And so were you looking at natural screening like trees or a fence or something? I guess we were just more interested in what sort of security or privacy there would be.
Yeah, and I think the idea was to do wrought iron fence with maybe some vegetation, trees, that sort of thing, to get more of a natural type barrier where it's not so intrusive. So I know that I think the city codes, if a residential area abuts certain roads, they actually have to have masonry fences. That's not the case for this property. It doesn't, and correct me if I'm wrong, Laura, but
No,
since-
you're correct.
So since this doesn't abut roads, we could actually use, and like I said, that's why we're here in this meeting, to get feedback from the neighbors to say, okay, what makes more sense? Yeah, you probably don't want to see some block wall masonry fence that's painted white colors or whatever. You probably would rather, and I'm just, taking a guess that you would want probably a wrought iron fence which provides that barrier, but yet kind of protect that with vegetative cover and trees or whatever. So
The bungalows don't have backyards, it didn't look like, is that correct?
no, it's mainly courtyards, that sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So we would be looking at the sides of the buildings, I guess.
Uh,
I think all of them face the courtyard, so you'd be. looking
Yeah,
at the back of
the
of
entrance would face the courtyard. Mhm, exactly. But like I said, keep in mind, we want to try to, what this will allow is also to keep as many trees as we can.
Sure.
Anything else, Brian or Dana?
Just the only quick question I had, in that you may have sort of addressed that already, but I know you were saying that it would be people leasing them long-term.
Yes.
I'm not sure, Laura, if I'm not up on the city's Airbnb policy. I'm not sure what that is. We may already have a policy in place that prevents this. But those wouldn't be in contention for that. Would they be to be like placed for like weekly rentals or anything like that? Or you look at someone that rents it for 6 months or say a year?
No.
Just
So
long- Mhm.
we are in the midst of writing regulations for short-term rentals right now. So it's yet to be determined. It'll go back to council here probably in April. Right now, we have separation distances built into the regulations, so there's 350 feet between any short-term rental use. So that's really all I can speak to right now. So if you even had one in this complex, that would be it. That'd be all you'd be allowed. And it,
Mhm.
based on their reaction, I'd say they don't have any intention of doing it.
No, I think what we want is the long term, because it's also greater stability, from a maintenance and, the people who are occupying, using those places. So that's definitely the intent. There's a lot more problems, I think, with the short term leasing. That's a different kind of setup. So this is kind of like it's probably most of them would be younger people who can't afford a house and they're just getting started and they're working and they want all the convenience nearby. And, this will be fairly cost effective, for that. They can't afford to buy a house, for example, so.
But it wouldn't be like the Austin lease rates of $2,000 a month.
No,
So, no.
probably half
Or
that.
more. Or more.
Sounds low for
Yeah.
Austin.
Yeah, that's true.
Right.
That's how much they increased it last year is what it is.
It's probably about 2,000, I think, for 800 square feet, 900 square feet. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
But these would be probably on the upper end, probably $1.50 per square foot, or it would be 90 cents a square foot or 95 cents a square foot at the upper side because it's a smaller unit. So
It'll probably depend too how many they end up being able to get in there, once they figure in fire code and parking and so forth. It may be reduced a little bit, but right now we're just speaking conceptually.
Yeah.
If when they move forward with the zoning, you'll be notified again. And maybe we'll have another bond meeting, but either way, we will have public hearings on it if they rezone the portion of the property. So you'll hear about it again.
Yeah, I'd say too, I think it's important is if people get a chance to look at all that, we're happy to share all the documents. We just really want to get good feedback on this so that we're doing something that makes good sense, for all the neighbors. I talked to Brian and Dana years ago. This is a long time ago. So I think it's important, just look at it, think about it, and ask questions. We want to try to just position this though, so that it really makes sense for everybody.
Is there a way that we can contact all additional?
Yeah. Well, you originally owned all this, right?
My grandmother did, yes.
Oh, your grandmother,
Yeah.
It's in his family a long time, so.
So Fred, do you want us to take in any questions and then send them to you, or?
Yeah, absolutely.
That'd probably be best.
Yeah.
Sarah.
I think this is helpful.
Yeah, Sarah Seha Bennett in my office, who's on this call also, is probably your best contact for that. And then she can shoot any emails to them, and then we'll continue to share information as we move along through the process.
And before,
and if there's things that people are wondering about, that how would we mitigate this if it's, whatever, just ask it, because I think we can address it. Mark's really worked on this quite a bit, and he's got a lot of experience with this. And then I think, we've definitely talked a lot with people in Boerne, so, Laura and everybody. So.
Councilmember Scott, did you have a question? I see your hand is up.
I don't know how to put my hand back down, but yeah, I did have a question, and it was, so essentially this is going to be operated like an apartment complex. This will be a single owner leasing all those individual units.
Yes.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay. All right. That's what just wanted to confirm that. So there will be no possibility of individual sales to cut any of those off or nothing. Okay.
Yeah, it wouldn't be a condo regime, nothing like that. It'd be one entire owner that would own the office complex plus the bungalows. So one owner. Correct.
Excellent. And is there any perceived, do you have any business owners that you're looking to lease to in that space right now?
No, we're not that far along yet. We can't really market it until we gotta figure out.
We got to be sure.
Yeah. So.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yep, you bet. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
Anybody
you.
else? We've got a couple other people on here. Does anybody else have any questions? If not, I thank you, gentlemen, for presenting.
Laura, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Thanks for the opportunity. Appreciate that.
Brian,
Thanks
did
a
you want
lot.
to say?
yeah, I just had one more, this is Jane again, just one more quick one. Fred and Mark, have y'all done any sort of studies that show that there's a need for the bungalows? I mean, have you, in other words, do you think they would be well received here? I don't mean from us as neighbors, but I mean from the people that would lease them. Have you, like, do you think that there's a need for those here in Boerne?
Well, what I know is, and I'm a CCIM, Certified Commercial Investment Member. What I know is, even though you still see a lot of residential development across the state, there is still, believe it or not, a shortage in housing in general. So, and that's why you still see a lot of multifamily developments in San Antonio, I don't think there's an end in sight. Okay. So to answer your question, and especially Boerne, there's still a need for that at Boerne as well. So to answer your question, there's a need for it. I think it's one of those, you build it and they will be there to rent them, at least them. So I'm pretty confident of that.
Thank you. I was just going to say thank you as your neighbors for bringing this forward and giving us a chance to talk to y'all, and best of luck with whatever happens.
Well,
Yeah.
Thank you. This is, I didn't know that this was available, but it makes perfect sense. So it's a much better approach versus, getting into a zoning meeting and you don't really have the opportunity to exchange and share information like you do at this format. So appreciate that.
Good. We're glad it is beneficial, and we've had some really good results using these bond meetings. So this conversation is so much better than when you're standing up at the dais.
It is. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So.
Well, people have time to think and they can still give us some feedback on it. But I think that the typical person, probably the demand is very high. I mean, this is close enough even to drive to San Antonio for some people to go to work, but it'd be more affordable. But even if they're, working in Boerne or in that area, it's most likely going to be younger people that are just getting started. They can't buy a house, and so they want to get into some place and, kind of save up for a couple of years or so longer term. And, I think it's a good model, and it could really help the community with its growth, because the people that would be kind of the typical, the younger generation doesn't really buy a lot of houses outright, for a number of reasons. They may have a lot of debt, and, it's harder to buy a house right now anyway. The demand is definitely higher than the supply. And so this is, generally speaking, is going to be a very good fit in a lot of communities. And it would also increase some of the tax revenue, I think, so we really want your feedback. And this has really been great.
Well, again, we will see this again when they zone that back portion of it, and we'll have a public hearing. There will be a sign out there. We'll send out notifications. So it sounds like you'll be seeing this soon.
Very good.
Okay.
Very good.
Awesome.
All right.
Thank you, everybody.
All right.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Take care.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.